If you add the reaction time, distance of 45 feet, and the actual braking distance of 80 feet, you have a total distance of 125 feet to stop a moving vehicle traveling at 40 miles an hour. Without the proper distance, this vehicle cannot stop in time. The result is a traffic accident. By using good defensive driving skills, you can shorten these distances and possibly avoid major problems. It's called smart braking. Let's take the same example, only this time the driver will display a smart braking defense driving skill. As the vehicle approaches the intersection, the driver removes his foot and places it over the brake pedal. This is called guarding the brake. Even though this vehicle has the right-of-way, the driver is displaying a smart defensive driving skill. Suddenly, the same vehicle appears from the cross street, only this time the driver's foot is in position over the brake. By having your foot in a smart brake position, you are able to apply the brakes faster, shorten the distance response time of a vehicle traveling at 40 miles an hour to 10 feet. Your braking distance is still 80 feet, but this time the vehicle traveled only 10 feet before the brakes were applied, coming to a complete stop in a total of 90 feet. The defensive driving skill of smart braking changed the stopping distance of a vehicle traveling at 40 miles an hour from 125 feet in the first example to 90 feet. The difference of 35 feet in the second example was the margin needed to avoid a major problem. Developing smart braking habits or a good defensive driving skill in all driving conditions will increase the probability of stopping your vehicle safely. When driving on highways at higher speeds, look beyond the vehicle directly in front of you for potential problems. Be alert to guard the brake if traffic starts to slow down before the vehicle ahead has to brake. In children play areas, guarding the brake could be the difference between a potential and actual serious injury. You should always be alert to potential trouble and recognize the signs immediately. Knowing what to do is not enough if you don't have the time to react.
Another distraction while driving is the use of a mobile phone. Recent studies have shown that using a phone while operating a vehicle increases the possibility of having an accident by 4 times, just as dangerous as driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs. Just recently, Suffolk County, New York, became the first county in the nation to pass a law that states, when driving on any public street or highway within Suffolk County, you cannot use your mobile phone unless you are using a hands-free device or you are making an emergency call. When using hands-free devices, reaching to dial or answer the phone is permitted. Otherwise, you must pull off the road to use a cellular phone without a hands-free device. Emergency calls permitted include those to a police department or 911, fire department, ambulance, and hospital. Other state and local legislators nationwide are presently developing similar laws, so be sure to check with your state and local areas concerning governing rules or laws on using mobile phones while operating a vehicle.
Night driving is more dangerous because the distance you can see ahead or to the side is greatly reduced. Your headlights cover approximately 350 feet ahead. It's important that you drive at a speed that allows you to react and stop safely within that distance. The law requires you to use your headlights from 1/2 hour after sunset to 1/2 hour before sunrise, and whenever you're using your windshield wipers to clean rain, snow, or sleet. Even when headlights don't help you see in low-light periods, they make it easier for other drivers and pedestrians to see your vehicle. You can't see well at night with dirty headlights or windows. A dirty windshield greatly increases glare from approaching headlights. Be considerate in using your high beams. Your headlights must be on low beam when you are within 500 feet of an approaching vehicle or within 200 feet of a vehicle ahead of you. You should always drive slower than you would in daylight, especially in unfamiliar areas or on narrow roads. Remember, about 90% of your driving decisions are based on what you see. At night, you must use extra caution to make up for reduced visibility.
Remember, Defensive driving means anticipating trouble in time to do something about it. And attitude and alertness can be just as important as driving skills. Taking responsibility for your own actions is the first step in developing basic driving skills and keeping our roads safer.
Today, there are over 158 million licensed drivers throughout the United States. And on a daily basis, many of these people, average, sensible people for the most part, go about their business in an orderly and lawful manner. But what's really happening is that these drivers are sorting and processing information. Although they may not realize it, they're making hundreds of decisions each mile they drive, and turning those decisions into actions that keep their vehicles under control. When we first learn to drive, this processing of information is often observed as awkward judgment. But with a little experience, it becomes automatic, adding to the skills of a safe driver. I said for the most part, these drivers were average, sensible people. But unfortunately, this is not true for all. Some of these drivers will impair or lose their driving skills by drinking and continuing to drive. Why? Because driving safely after drinking alcohol is simply not possible. The National Highway and Traffic Safety Administration says that on any weekend night, 1 in 10 drivers is intoxicated. So we decided to find out for ourselves how many weekend partygoers were fit to drive and how many thought they could. More importantly, we wanted to see if they could distinguish between what they had to drink and what they thought they could safely accomplish behind the wheel. Hi there. Have you girls been drinking?
Yeah, we've had a few.
I just had 3 beers, but we're just getting started.
Cheers.
Excuse me, but aren't you taking a rather large risk driving after you've been drinking?
What, are you kidding me? I only had a couple of beers. I live around the block. I drive safe after a couple of drinks.
Pardon me, are you sure you should be driving this auto after you've been drinking?
Yeah, I'm fine. I just had a couple of glasses of wine. Maybe, just a couple of spritzers. I'm not drunk. I can drive.
To take our experiment one step further, we invited several people to a party. First, our party was designed to record the effects of alcohol on our guests. Second, each of our guests volunteered to throw caution to the wind and drink heavily while participating in several tests and experiments. Next, we asked each guest to fill out a short form to provide us with some background information. And under the direction of the Suffolk County Police Department, take a breathalyzer test to ensure their sobriety at registration. Finally, to monitor their drinking and safety, we provided a medical team to supervise their progress. In addition, a medical background form was developed on each participant to ensure there were no conflicts with medication or current medical problems. During the course of the party, we will be conducting and scoring various eye and hand coordination tests at different stages of alcohol intake. We will also be asking several true or false questions. If you wish to keep your own score while viewing, be ready with a pen or pencil to field some of the questions ahead. To start off the festivities, we introduced our guests to several entertaining challenges before we opened the bar. As you can see, they immediately got into the swing of things. At this station, we set up a simple geometric shape identification problem. Our partygoers were asked to match the 18 objects with their corresponding openings within a time frame of 45 seconds. While sober, few had trouble accomplishing this task, which was reflected in their scores. As a group, they averaged 15 out of the 18 for 83% completion. Likewise, with the Simon Light game, our guests were asked to retain the random order the lights appeared and duplicate that order. Again, while sober, our partygoers had little trouble and lots of fun, averaging 12 out of 15 for 80% completion. Once they all had a chance to display their skills, we opened the bar and the party quickly started to roll. Everyone was instructed to drink as many drinks as they desired. Our bartenders recorded each individual's intake. Both the medical team and police breathalyzer stations were updated periodically with this information. While our guests are getting their drinks, we'll take a look at our first few questions. Question 1. Answer true or false. Is it safe to use a 2-drink average in determining how much alcohol you can drink in a 1-hour period and remain legally sober? The answer is false. Mark yourself right or wrong. Each individual's reaction to alcohol will vary, not only from person to person, but on a daily basis as well. The driver of this car is instinctively and accurately sorting out all the information ahead, beside and behind her. She's automatically ignoring information not important and making adjustments to what is. Alertness is an important part of this process, and without it, it could result in a dangerous situation. Question 2. Answer true or false. 40% of all the drivers in the United States will be involved in an alcohol-related accident in their lifetime. The answer is true. Mark yourself right or wrong. 2 out of every 5 Americans will be involved in an alcohol-related accident at some time in their lives. That number applies to both drinking and non-drinking drivers, which serves as a reminder that drunk drivers are not alone on the streets and highways. When driving becomes monotonous, your alertness can be affected, resulting in missed information. The risk to a sleepy or drowsy driver is far greater than is generally recognized. Many drivers are suddenly overtaken by involuntary and unrecognized naps, called microsleeps. A vehicle traveling at 55 miles per hour will cover a distance of over 400 feet during a 5-second microsleep, and you would never be aware of this experience unless it resulted in an accident. Any driver that builds up a sleep debt by reducing the required amount of sleep he or she needs is at an increased risk of experiencing a microsleep. Those who consume alcohol, even in small quantities, are at greater risk of having a sleep-related accident. The level of driver impairment induced by a small amount of alcohol is increased by a factor of 6 when alcohol is taken after the driver got only half their normal amount of sleep. Now, test your alertness before we test our drinkers. We are able to control the second hand of this clock, so it can either stop, move forward 2 seconds, or jump back. Count the stops and/or adjusted movements of this clock for the next 30 seconds. Start now. There was 1 stop and 1 move forward. Score yourself right or wrong. Our party guests had to watch this same clock for 5 minutes when they were sober and for the same amount of time after they had been drinking. While sober, the monotony of the clock's movements did not affect the alertness of our guests. However, our drinkers, in many cases, missed adjusted moves and reacted to normal clock movements. This critical processing of information could make the difference in a dangerous situation. Almost 100% of our guests spotted the movements when sober, but less than 50% after they had been drinking. As you can see, no one is immune to the effects of alcohol. What was easy and fun earlier may be more fun now, but as the results showed, much harder. The alcohol has slowed their reflexes and reaction time. It also distorted their judgment and alertness. In other words, it reduced their physical and mental skills, the very same skills needed to drive safely. You don't have to look or feel drunk for these things to happen. The effects of alcohol can begin long before you become intoxicated or even legally impaired. They begin to happen with the first drink. Question 3. Answer true or false. Serious impairment can begin with a breathalyzer reading of 0.05%. The answer is true. Mark yourself right or wrong. The legal limits are usually much higher and vary from state to state. Do you know the legal limit where you live? Question 4. Answer true or false. Having a drink will relax you. The answer is true. Mark yourself right or wrong. Alcohol will relax you by numbing your nervous system.